Kisa kikit, kia ora. Welcome everyone to another workshop for our Innovate for Impact project. I lost track of where we are. Number four, I think we are in the workshop series, but it is May 2026, and it's so great to see you all here in the virtual space. Here on Gugana Marcus, the land of the raven, here in the Elk Valley, it is raining, and we're commenting that it's also raining in Kelowna. So we're thankful to the uh, sky for producing something that we needed to be produced here for our land. I was just saying my garden was looking incredibly dry. So thank you to the earth for sustaining us at this time and looking after us. Um, those of you, I think everyone does know, but Robin Peel here from Community Futures East Kootenay, and really proud to be a partner on the Innovate for Impact project with Impact Toolbox. And we're all about advancing social enterprise across the Kootenay region. And so great to see so many of you through regular workshops and the communities of practice and all the various ways that you are here, being a part of this journey and creating this ecosystem that's really helping us create strong and resilient communities. There is lots of ways that you can get involved, and again, it's great to see so many of you who are choosing many of those ways to be involved in this project. We do have the incubation programs for both new and emerging or growing enterprises. There'll be new cohorts coming in the fall, so I'll be talking about that later on, but do keep an eye out. So if you know of someone or you yourself are interested in going through that cohort, they are going to be coming in the fall. We have obviously these workshops, which are here that we will run every 2 months. We have our community of practice called Mission Possible, which again, many of you have joined as a place to share and learn with each other. And the next one's coming up in June for that. We have our Impact Summit, the first one coming up on the 2nd of June. I'll put some information in the chat shortly about that. And so that's a great way, again, for us to celebrate all the amazing people that we have within the Kootenay region here supporting this work in social enterprise. We have our youth program, which I'll talk about, again, show something shortly. They're just finishing up the first cohort, and they're going to be pitching their event, their social enterprise ideas at the end of May. And we would love as many of you as possible to be there to hear all these 14 to 18-year-olds across the Kootenay region sharing their ideas of what they're going to do to help their communities. We have learning opportunities for post-secondary, and we've got 3 people on the call today from post-secondary who will be helping social enterprises across the region as well. So that's another way you can get involved. And then we are starting the work on our social hackathon in September. So again, lots of opportunities to get involved. You know how to find me, hopefully, to ask about any of those. And if you don't, I'll put my email in the chat as well. I just want to share, these are the 2 events coming up in the next few weeks that are open to everyone. And I, again, would really love for there to be more people coming to share and support, even if you're not, presenting at them. So the youth pitch event is on May 28th in the evening, kind of early evening. And this is a chance again for the secondary school students to share their ideas. So if you're around and available, would love to have you there. And then the annual online summit, which we are calling Kootenay Late Night, trying to make it more like a talk show rather than a webinar presentation. Sharing stories, of which some people in this room will be sharing their stories about how they are making impact across the Kootenay region. So that's on the 2nd of June, a little bit later at night, not quite late night. Robin needs to be in bed before late night really happens. But that is another opportunity for you to share as well. So we are going to talk about impact today. We have Shagan from Impact Toolbox, who many of you know, being the presenter. If in the chat you can just mention who you are, where you're coming from, and potentially your interest in impact, that will help us kind of shape the conversation. We know we've got some pretty committed individuals here who are doing some deep work on social enterprise, but there's also some people I don't recognize, and so I don't know where you're coming from at the moment. in terms of your physical location. That would be interesting to know where in the Kootenay region or beyond you are joining us from, so we can just understand that. But also, yeah, is there anything regarding impact measurement that you are particularly interested in knowing more about? Um, Shagan is going to do a presentation, and there'll be a short time at the end, maybe for some Q&A, but if you can just be adding questions or thoughts or discussions in the chat, it just makes it easier for us to kind of follow along, and I can jump in and make sure Shagan's answering any of your questions as you go through. If you are not already signed up, there is on the screen, there's a QR code. I do regular updates to the community around all the various parts of this project that exist. And as I said, there's so many, you can't keep track of them all. So please make sure you sign up to that update. You can choose which programs you're interested in, so I can keep you informed of when programs open and any events that are happening and ways we can support. So I'm going to stop sharing now. It keeps moving where I'm going to do that from, and I'm going to hand over to Shagan.
Thank you, Robin. Long time no see. Uh, good to see everyone here, and I'm glad to be back. Natalia, I'll share my screen so that I can be in charge of my. Um, can everyone see my screen?
Looks good. Thank you.
Great, awesome. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. I am going to try my best to run through a lot of slides in a short period of time. But if you do have questions, feel free to stop me. My hope is not to bombard you with so much information, but rather to just give you something that's useful enough for your understanding of measurement, and hopefully you can start to think about how your organization can measure what matters. And if you have any further question or any further need after today, we can always find some time together to talk more.
Shagan, at the moment, only part of your slide is showing for some reason on my screen.
Okay.
Same here.
That's better. That's right.
See, I told you my laptop has an issue. I don't know what's going on with it. But if you can see my screen, that's good. Okay. So I want to start with a bit of a land acknowledgement, and I'm always conscious of saying that I don't take this for granted, and I'm not acknowledging for acknowledging sake. This is a commitment and a public reaffirmation of my commitment to this land that I'm privileged to live and work and play in. I am based in Kelowna, and I live in the ancestral and unceded territory of the Sikh-Okanagan people. And I've made a commitment to use my talents, my knowledge, my skills to make this land better than I met it, because I feel like that's the least I can do. And I always hope that my positive externalities are better than or outweighs my negative externality. And that comes from a story from my own grandparents who experienced colonization. And every time they talk about their colonizers, they have a lot of terrible things to say. But every once in a while, they will go and say, oh, they built a bridge, they built that house there, they made that road. And I would note those positive things. And regardless of how we live, we probably might not be able to control the negative things that we contribute to this land by inhabiting it. But I'm inviting all of us to take a conscious effort to internalizing the positive things that we do and do more of it, and doing so in a way that allows future generations to meet those things and be able to say, oh, there was Shegun who lived here within a certain period and he contributed this to this land. And that's the least that we could do. And I hope we don't acknowledge the land for acknowledgement's sake, but rather we remind ourselves of our commitment to contributing as well. with that said, I will jump into my presentation for today. And I just want to start by setting the scope of this conversation. And please kindly slow me down because I know I have about 40 minutes and I have like 76 slides. I am naturally telling myself to run and run and run, but I will slow down and kind of slow me down if you need me to. What is social impact measurement? Social impact measurement really comes down to assessing the effects or outcomes of an intervention that you do, your project, your programs, your work, and really looking at it from an angle of as it cost the change that you want it to cost in the environment or in people's lives. That is what impact measurement is all about. You will often hear people say evaluation, and there is a age-long debate between what is evaluation, what is impact measurement. But a general consensus is that when you do program evaluation, you're looking at the entire spectrum of this diagram that you have in front of you. Evaluation kind of asks, how good are you at turning inputs to activities and activities into outputs and outcomes? Program evaluation, you're looking at efficiency, you're looking at effectiveness, you're looking at how the program was designed, and is the design good enough? Does it need tweaking or all of those kind of things? It's much more detailed. You're looking at the entire life cycle of the impact framework. But in measurement, you're mostly more concerned with the part that I just circled here, which is the outcomes and the output of your work. So that's a generic, oversimplified differentiation between when we say monitoring and evaluation and impact measurement. There is debates that conflicts those two together. There are debates that says they are same. There are debates that goes into theoretical reasons why they are different. But for the sake of our conversation today, a simple way to think about it is impact measurement concerns itself more about the outputs and the outcomes. It's not more about performance or does your program reach who it wants to reach, or have you implemented the program correctly or not. So that is a very important thing for you to bear in mind as we kind of go through our conversation together today. So fundamentally, impact measurement comes down to how we understand the changes that our work creates in people's lives, in the communities that we live in, the systems in which we operate. What changed exactly because of our work? Who was affected by our work? How those changes happen might be part of the things that we track. How long might the change last? And we'll talk about timing at some point as we kind of chat through this content together. But what can we measure after that 1 year or 2 year of grant, and what can't we measure? And part of my goal as we have this conversation today is that I hope I'll leave you with a bit of confidence where you can actually talk to your funders and say, this is what we can report after 1 year. And you probably have to wait 50 years before you see those other things. But understanding of, that's how you kind of could demonstrate your understanding of impact measurement, knowing what is measurable within a period of time or not. So impact measurement can leverage quantitative data. It can leverage qualitative data. You could do it using interviews, using stories, focus groups, observing people, or you could do survey or use statistics. And we'll dive into how those are different shortly, but fundamentally is that impact measurement concerns itself with what is changing in the people, in the lives of the people that you're working with or in the environments in which you're working. Certain misconceptions about impact measurement. Impact measurement is not that question. It's usually question number 7 in many grant application that you answer when you're filling that grant application and you just quickly fill in something there. That's really not impact measurement. Impact measurement goes a little bit deeper and intentional more than that. It's not something you do at the end of the program. I get requests by many organizations to say, oh, can you help us do evaluation of our program after the last 5 years? Like, yeah, that's not impact measurement. Impact measurement is more intentional, embedded, and operational than that. It's more of a preemptive reporting mindset rather than a reactive one. Impact measurement is not just counting or collecting satisfaction surveys, goes more than that. And it's also not about gauging if you're performing or not. It's really about learning about what can is our work really, am I waking up daily to come to work for a good cause? Am I waking up daily to come to work to change people's life? And is that truly happening? And can I find a way of deriving some comfort and joy in knowing that I'm helping to move a needle, even if it's just the one person's life being changed a year? It's worth knowing that I'm contributing to that. And it's not necessarily a thing of performance. It's about how can I do better? How can we better impact people's lives? And it's not always through randomized control trials, diff in diff, or all those rigorous evaluation methods. In fact, there are a lot of work now that have shown how randomized control trials are not gold standard for impact measurement. In many cases, they've wasted a lot of people's time. So I'm going to show you some simple ways to measure impact today, and it won't be randomized control trial, but it will be equally good. And if you're unfamiliar with randomized control trial, I can just talk a little bit about that. In positivist academic Western scientific research, what is held as gold standard research has always been around randomized or approaches or quantitative approaches that allows you to be able to isolate the impact of your own direct efforts and show that there is your work, your effort that has led to the result that is being observed. But what often happens is that a lot of correlations are conflated as causality. And what I can mean by that is that something traveling in the same direction and say they have a bearing on each other, but that's not always the case. And it's just so hard to really, especially in the social sector, to really be able to prove that your work led to that effect that has happened. There are so many core variables that you cannot isolate when in the social sector, in this and in many of the environments in which we work. So that makes randomized control trials really unrealistic and make them super expensive to do, because you cannot, people attend different seminars, people attend different things. So you can't solely claim that I'm the reason why they are a better leader. There are just so many other reasons why they can be better leaders. And doing randomized control trial in social context has been proven to be very, very difficult. So our goal in impact measurement is not to prove that this direct causality that randomized control trials try to prove. What they do in randomized control trial is that you need to have a group that you will work with. Then you have to have another cohort of group that you're not working with. Then after some time, you compare if the result of the people you've worked with is different from those that you've not worked with. I once proposed this approach to one nonprofit leader, and a response to me was, who has time for that? and it's very true. Who has time for that? There are so many things that could go wrong, attrition and all of those things. So randomized control trials can be limiting, and they are not necessarily gold standard. What is gaining a lot of traction in the social sector and by many school of thought, including standard setters like Common Approach, is a theory-driven evaluation approach. And what we mean by theory-driven evaluation approach is that if you can defend your theory of change, if you have enough evidence that X can cause Y, and other people from other experiences or even academic work has proven that that is possible, and you design your work, you created X to cause Y, then you can actually claim that impact without necessarily doing a randomized control trial. What I'm trying to say is this. If you do okay, I'm going to use my own example so that this is clearer. When I first started Impact2Works, we were wondering, how does presenting workshops, webinars, and providing training, how can that help people that are starting social enterprises? And does it actually help them start social enterprise? A silly thing to do will have been to do a randomized control trial to have a group of people that we would not train versus a group of people that we would train, and then compare the results eventually. But someone else has done that work. There are a lot of work that's been done and reported about how mentorship, coaching, training helps people start new businesses. So a theory-driven approach that we took on was to look at all of those research, both secondary and primary research, and other organizations that are analogous to ours, to see what was their result when they deliver this kind of program. We looked at that, and then we benchmark ourselves against them. So what we did was we validated that mentorship helps people start social enterprises. So that is good. That means that if we offer mentorship, we can claim that it helps to start, it contributes to starting social enterprises. Good. And then we went further into the data, and they said for every 100 people that you train on social entrepreneurship and mentor, only 35 people end up starting social enterprises. So the pass mark is 35%. That eased a lot of pressure and removed that performance mindset from our mind. So every time we do this kind of program and we're like, oh, 35 people are 3 out of 10 people are successful. Yeah, that's good because it's there is a theoretical foundation that has kind of supported that. And it does not necessarily have to be secondary academic research. It's just that you want to be sure that your theory of change is validated. You've created that theory of change to say, these are the activities that we do, and these are the outputs and outcomes that are expected from it. And we can validate that that is true. Maybe by asking people in your community or people that have done similar work or doing some of the research. Once you do that, you can believe that your work contributes to it, and then you can report your contribution to such outcomes because there is a foundation that supports that claim. So that's what theory-driven evaluation is all about. I feel like I'm talking in a very nerdy way. And does everybody understand this before I go forward? Because it's very critical that you do. Good? Thumbs up? Okay. No thumbs up. Oh, Tammy, you're muted.
I do understand it. Yes, thumbs up. But I have a question around shared impact. So, what if you and 4 other organizations are doing similar work, having similar impact, and the impact is valid? How do you separate out how much of the impact belongs to your program and how much of the impact belongs to the others?
Good question. That is where this slide is going to. Theory-driven evaluation says you don't. You don't think about isolating that causality, but rather you claim contribution. So you're contributing to it with an understanding that so many other variables, including those other organizations, and even beyond them, is contributing to the same impact. So what you're looking at is our work contributes to shared impact. And a complete impact story, as I will soon get there recently, from now, is a 2-part puzzle that says this is what we do and this is the results we are seeing. So your output, which is the work that you do specifically, for example, we work with 10 people in community to get jobs. Those 10 people got a job. It is not only your effort that has led them to get a job, but you contributed to you did something, and you can claim those outputs that this is what we did to get them to us getting a job. They got a job as a collective impact, as a shared impact. And a bigger shared impact is that those people started making money and they are now contributing to economic growth in our community. Is traceable to that. And there are a lot of theories and facts that support that that is possible. You can trace and claim that, as so long you're not trying to isolate the specificity of how your own work, because that's what makes it hard for you to be able to actually prove out that. So it's a systems approach, a contribution mindset, rather than a direct causal pathway that you're trying to prove. So what is even more interesting is when someone now intentionally credits your specific action for the reason why they are successful. That's more compelling. So in theory-driven evolution, this is where you're kind of looking to arrive at, where you're able to show this is what we did, this is what we are saying as success, and this is Mr. or Mr. A or Mrs. B that is crediting our specific action for that success. So this is your strongest pool of evidence in this approach. What are people saying that are they accrediting directly to your work as being part of that? But that maybe 5 out of those 10 people will accredit directly, which is fine, which is good, but it does not also mean that you've not contributed to the success of the thing. So theory-driven evaluation kind of soften the need for causality in this framework. Does that answer your question, Tammy? So that's fundamental, that you wear that contribution mindset. We contribute to it, and these are specific credit or loosely speaking, attribution back to us that our work specifically contributed to their success. So it's even better when someone credits you your specific action. So therefore, impact measurement is not judging your performance or explaining failure. Sorry for the typos there, or trying to punish people. It's not about, did I single-handedly create this impact? It is, did my work help move the needle? Did it make a difference for someone, even in a small way? Does it contribute? And do we have confidence in knowing that we are part of the solution that people are experiencing, and we are a key part of the of economic growth that people are experiencing because we've helped people get jobs? So impact measurement is a strategic learning approach. It is something that you intentionally create systems for, and it's not something you do, oh, now let's do impact measurement. I always tell clients that if you're the type of organization that you come in December or in February or March and say, now we want to do impact measurement and report, then you're not doing impact measurement very well. It has to be something that is on the background. Often you don't know you're doing it if you're doing it well. You have created an operational process and systems that work within your organization that allows your data to flow, and everybody has clarity about what you're measuring and why you're measuring what that thing is. So it's not about emotion. It's about just kind of looking for evidence that your work is doing the right thing. So impact measurement is measuring how your work is contributing to the good that we are seeing in the world. And more critically is the second part. Remember when I said that it is even better when people credit you for the work. So when you reverse that, impact measurement is, how can we establish a system for seeking those accreditations and using those accreditations and reporting those accreditations? That's really what you're trying to build. How might we intentionally create a system for seeking or creating a venue for people to actually credit us for the work that we've done and the experience or the success they've expressed in their own lives. That is the challenge for impact measurement. So it's something you build into your program before you even run the program. At what avenue do we ask the right questions? How might we create room for people to actually share testimonies? How might we create room for people to provide us with data? That's really what impact measurement is about. So it's that really systematic approach. I'll reverse a little bit before I go into our main topic for today to talk about what is impact. The most dominant and conventional thinking of what impact is, especially when you look at it from a theory of change perspective, is we often define impact as something futuristic. Like when we do this work, 10 years time or after our lifetime, there will be a result. Academically, people define impact as a policy or systems level change that you're trying to work towards. Now, that definition is correct, but there is another growing school of thought that is more attuned with indigenous values, and it is the consciousness that, wait, impact is actually happening every day, and it's not just in the future. If you can walk on a safe road and you can let your kids go out of the house and go play, that's actually impact. There is something and someone that is responsible for that safety. When you open your tap and clean water comes out of it, it feels so normal, but it is actually a result of someone's activity that we are experiencing today. That is impact. Someone is ensuring, or a system is ensuring, that clean water comes out of our tap and we have access to it. So impact is happening all around us. A futuristic thinking about impact will lead us into thinking it is far away, and then we have indicator blindness that we can't actually measure things today. But we can, because our work is already yielding some results today. And being more mindful and present with that thought helps us to find things to measure today. So this interpretation of impact will be very important as we kind of go forward. So impact may go unnoticed. Things that are being sustained, not necessarily dramatically changing, things that needs that are being met quietly are all part of impact. And it's important that we kind of pay attention to those. So this leads us to a definition of impact that is very, very impact measurement friendly. And many Canadian initiatives, like, even the Rockefeller Foundation out of the US have adopted this definition as well. And impact is the proportion of changes in output and outcomes that is the result of your organization's activities. What this means is that impact is output plus outcomes, what you did and what is changing, even if it is now, rather than impact is a policy systems level change that is far away. They are defining impact as a complete story of two parts. One part about what you did, what you offered, and what you threw out there, and what have people started to experience as a result of that. That is your impact, and that is what we want to measure. And that's really what takes us to that initial picture that I started with. So your activities might be delivering essential services, whatever the work it is that you do. Output is your bragging right. What you said you did. What did we do? What did we put out there? We served 1,000 people is an output. We offered 10 training sessions is an output. We provided 50 kilogram of food is an output. Your bragging rights, how you will often talk about your work in a natural sense, about your performance and the things you've done. That is an output. Outcome, on the other side, is what is changing in community and what is measurable changes, or what are people crediting you that you've done for them that's changing. So a good example is this: if you work in financial literacy, your output is 10 workshops, 50 youth served, but outcomes is within 3 months, how many of them have started to budget regularly? How many of them have opened their first savings? A contemporary thinking about impact is that when you do activities around financial literacy, you might be thinking far off that our impact is that more people are buying houses. Yes, but that is far off. One of my friends from Australia would always say something that when you look at your theory of change and you're wondering where should we start measuring from, you should move back towards your activity to the place where you find something that is possible for you to measure. So an immediate possible outcome of a financial literacy workshop would be, how are people using the knowledge that they've gained? Are they budgeting? Are they have they opened their first savings account? Those are things that are measurable. Another one is if you run a music school, output will be you did 4 terms of music classes, 120 students participated. Those are your bragging rights. Those are your outputs. 6 students reciters with 80% attendance rate. That is not outcome yet. That is your output. It is part of the story. And then what is the outcome? Then by the year end, 75% of those students, their parents are saying that their music proficiency has increased, or they joined more advanced music classes in the future as evidence that they've learned from this stage, and then they're able to proceed to the next step. Yeah, Asita, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you go back to that musical, the previous slide. So
yeah, it's in there, the second part. Yeah.
Yeah. So how you measure that proficiency in terms of music? Because especially that when we consider about these social enterprises most of the time, so there are certain elements that we can it's hard for us to measure quantitatively. Sorry, but it can be measured qualitatively, but it's hard to measure the quantitatively, especially like your fact mentioned about that proficiency. So is it through surveys or the interviews or something like that, or is there any other better ways of doing that accurately?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I want to disabuse something that you can measure as well as you can do in quantitative, as well as you can do in qualitative. It can be as simple as how many of the students can play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then you record that number. As simple as that. That's a quantitative data, and it has a qualitative depth in the sense that you know exactly what they can play. So proficiency, and that is what we're going to land on in our talk together, because I'm going to be talking to you about indicators very shortly. But fundamentally is that you choose a specific way of knowing when progress has been made, and you have the authority and the ability to choose that, whatever it is that you want. So a music school can have a global music rating score that they use for measuring proficiency. They are free to do that. And based on that, say, oh, if a child scores 8 out of 10, they have proficiency. Good. Another school can say, oh, if they can play this particular Mozart song, then they have proficiency. That is their own indicator of knowing. It all depends on, do you want to be able to compare yourself with other people around the world? Then you want to choose something that people around the world are using. But if you're fine with just a custom one of knowing that, okay, this is our own personal way of knowing, and we don't care about if we want to compare our kids with other kids in the world, then you can make a choice of a custom one. But it all depends on you. And there would be, when you research, there will be some music proficiency test out there that you can always use, but you do have the permission to choose whatever one that you want. It all depends on your context. What is most important for you as a signal of success? What does the parent of these kids need to know to be able to be sure that their children have music proficiency? Might be something that you track. Does that make sense? Good. So fundamentally, you need both output and outcomes to showcase your impact. And a lot of school of thought will say, oh, move from output to outcomes. I'm saying output are as important as an outcome. It's a two-part story. Output is what you've done. Outcome is what has changed. One guy on LinkedIn said, you did a thing does not mean you've changed a thing. And I really love that quote so much. So output is what you have done. Outcomes are the things that you've changed. What are people saying has changed? Or what is your environment, your land, your water, the air saying to you has changed as a result of what you have done? So tracking those two helps to have a complete story. So I said this earlier. So longest time possible result is where our mind possibly goes. And I'm encouraging us to think backward till we find something that is more measurable. So in this case, financial outcome, you're looking at become wealthy is the goal. But that might probably take another 5 years before, or 10 years before that person becomes wealthy. What can we measure sooner enough? We know that if the person begins to budget very well, if the person opens their savings accounts, you can't build wealth if you don't start by saving. And there are indications and evidence that these things can lead to someone becoming more financially sustainable. So we measure this and because that's what we can see and measure today as our outcome. So for you to have a good enough impact measurement, a common approach has developed these 5 general practices for knowing when your impact measurement is good enough, which means that if you meet if you have all these 5 practices implemented or operationalized within your organization, your impact measurement, you can be proud of it and you can stand tall anywhere to say, we are doing impact measurement well enough. And these are the 5 essential practices. You have a theory of change. You've identified some indicators of progress that you're using. You collect useful information. You have some surveys and you analyze those data and you use the data either for making decisions or for communications with funders or reporting to your community. You can be proud of yourself that you have a good enough impact measurement process. So this is a standard that really sets the floor for impact measurement. It's not a gold standard for measurement, but rather a way for you to be able to be proud and have that confidence that your impact measurement is good enough if you have these 5 essential practices. So also, if you don't have these practices within your organization yet, it gives you a bit of a framework to work towards that you can know, okay, we have a theory of change, but we don't have indicators. We don't collect data, or we collect data, but we just don't know what indicators those are for, or we don't even analyze those data. We just sit on it, or we sometimes use the results. So these practices are like routine practices that needs to be in your organization for you to be able to say your impact measurement is good enough. The focus today will, however, be on using indicator, and I'm going to try my best to quickly just talk a little bit about them, and I'll open the floor for more conversation. So what are indicators? Indicators, just like they sound, are indicators of progress. So this takes us back to what Hasita was asking earlier. How do we know that our work is doing what we want it to do? How do we know that this work is contributing meaningful to society? And what are the specific ways of actually knowing that is what indicators want to kind of do. So they are measurable signals that you choose. They are specific, and it is your own way of sense making and knowing that your work is making impact. So indicators are a criteria or a benchmark that you will set. They are just like your normal KPIs within your organization as well. And it is just a way of knowing that your work has achieved. I'm stressing the fact that it is your own way and you have the permission and the authority to choose what progress means and what that indication of progress or success means for you. You can set whatever you like as that benchmark. There is another age-long debate here between indicators and metrics, and I want to quickly explain this because I think this will be very helpful. People use the two interchangeably, but a simple take is that metrics are the raw data points that you have. So for example, a metric is number of, no, a metric is an attendance list of people who visit or who your organization serve. And a metric could be number of people and the location of where they come from. A metric could be gender, how many women or how many female, how many men or how many women participate in the program. Those are data points, those are metrics. Indicators are how you interpret those metrics and give them meaning, how you make them powerful. Those are indicators. So when you look at an attendance list that has women versus men, indicator could be, are we promoting gender equality in our program? Now, you're not just looking at that metric, you're reading a meaning to it. Or you're looking at a list of people and location of where they are from. And you can start to ask, are our programs accessible to people who live in rural and remote? So an indicator will be proportion of our participants that are from rural and remote communities as a signal of us contributing to rural empowerment or promoting equality. But it's the same data. Someone else can look at that data and read a different meaning to it. So your metrics are the data that you see, the data that you probably collect or have, but you're not reading meaning to it. Many of your organizations will have things you collect routinely or naturally within your organization. Indicators begins to call your attention to what can you say and what can you learn from the data that you're looking at, and how can you read a meaning to it beyond just number of participants that participated in our program or the type of participant that participated in our program. Each data point is telling you something, and indicators kind of ask you that question. What are you seeing? What is this data telling you? And what are you going to do about it? So indicators are not one size fits all. They are very tailored to your specific context and your specific organizations. And a good way to start to think about indicators, many of us don't think about indicators except for our funders, which is what we have to do, but it's also not a good way to kind of think about measurements. The only indicators many people track and use is the ones that comes with the grant funding. But a good way to start to use indicators is to think about, what do we need to tell all of our stakeholders? In the work that I do, I help organizations come up with indicators. And the first question that I ask them is that, what does your team members need to see and know about their work that would make them come to work every day and be happy? Let's write those down. What stories do they need to hear? Those are key indicators. What stories does your community need to see and see you as a vital organization within your community, or a group of people that will continue to volunteer and support your work? What do they need to see? Those are vital indicators. What are good things that your sector needs to see and know so that they won't make mistakes that you've made, or for them to be able to learn from your organization. Those are vital indicators. What are indicators that your funders have asked you to report against? Those are vital indicators as well. And what are the things you need to report to your board about every quarter? Those are vital indicators as well. So as you think about measuring what matters, you want to think about not just your funders, but you're looking at a broader ecosystem of people, of rights holders who need to hear from you. And those are the people you want to create indicators for. I'm going to skip some parts, but we can always have a conversation about it. A good way to use indicators and reports is a good example like this of what this organization has done. It's a YMCA, but you'll see how they've kind of segmented all of their work, and they have indicators. They have housing work, training and education. And if you click into each of these, they have indicators that they've kind of, this is preemptive reporting. And this is when you have articulated or listed out clear indicators, you can easily do this type of work. What they've done here is a Tableau dashboard, which is not so hard to create, but it kind of starts from having the right indicators and being able to preemptively show. So rather than do this PDF reporting and send it to everybody every year, you can always just go live and look at their impact and their reports from their website and see the metrics that they have and their indicators and how they are using it and what they have to tell. So my goal for every organization here is that you get to a level where you're able to do a preemptive reporting rather than a reactive reporting. But it's got to start by you first thinking about those stakeholders, those five rights holders, or whatever you might call them, and think about what do they need to know about me, about our work, list out those indicators out, and then you go on and get the data against it. Then you can have something like a dashboard that is much more functional like this. I'm rushing, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to use a minute or two to show you different types of indicators. Then we're going to close. Maybe we'll have another session where I can go further, but there are different ways to think about indicators, and we've created a typology, which is not a textbook one, but just based on our practical experiences working with clients. There is a prescribed and non-prescribed indicators. This one is straightforward. Your funders ask you to report on something. That's a prescribed indicator, while your the things that you need to know as an organization in order to make strategic decisions are non-prescribed indicators, as you can see here. The other one is formalized, custom, and customized, which is a critical part. Formalized indicators are indicators that some scientist or some group of people have agreed upon all around the world as set of indicators. And I always tell people, if you don't know what to measure and you don't know how to come up with indicators, these are the first place you need to go. Go to check the Sustainable Development Goals or go to the IRIS website. You will see how indicators are phrased. You will see how indicators are calculated and used. But what often happens is that these indicators are often not contextual because, like, for example, Sustainable Development Goals will be framed like a global thing, and you might not just find a use in that in your own community. So you may not be able to use it, but they are good if you are the type that likes to compare your work and generalize your work within with other people. It allows for comparability, but it does not. It's not good for contextual sense making. So, but they are a good place to start. So, what I recommend to people is that you can use those formalized indicators, or so. Okay, let me show you. This is an example of a formalized indicator. The IRIS is well documented. They show you the origin of the indicator, how to use it, how to calculate it, and all of those kind of things. They have the same for SDGs as well. How do you measure decent work and all of those things? But since they are not contextual, you can just you can create your own. And find a way of knowing how your work is contextual. So I worked with a lady a long time ago who wanted to know if our work is improving accessibility of STEM programs for girls. And we came up with this custom indicator. And we titled that Proportion of Rural Girls Completing STEM Training Program. And the breakdown of this is that you can test accessibility by knowing the number of rural girls who are attending. We did not choose boys, we chose girls, which is like very important to really nail down that level of accessibility. Ashita, back to your question, we decided on how do we know that they have completed indeed. We set our benchmark at they must have at least attended 80% of the session, or they must have passed the end of program assessment as our way of knowing. So this is not in any, it's not comparable to anybody anywhere else. It's just our own way, our own specific way of knowing, and that we have fulfilled our mandate of ensuring accessibility for girls. If girls, the number of girls, you can set a target. Let's say if 10 girls finishes this program, then we can claim that we've made the program accessible. So that's an example of a custom self-formulated indicator. The third one here is that you can actually customize an indicator. So take one of the SDG indicators or one of the IRIS, borrow some language there, and then make it local for you. Canada has done that for the SDGs, so you can also feel free and do that for your own community. For example, at Impact Toolbox, there is one of the SDG Goal 4 that says people attain skills for sustainable development. And we rephrase that as people attain the skills and knowledge that they need to start social enterprises in their communities. So you could rephrase and change and borrow some language to ensure localized customization. So I'll say this is a convenient spot to stop. There are two other more typologies or types of indicators. But what I want you to walk away with is that indicators needs to be smart. And we're going to probably share some of the slides with you so that you see it. They need to be smart. They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And they need to be clear. They need to be relevant. They need to be economic, adequate, and monitorable. And I'm going to stress economic here is that it has to be something that your organization can reasonably collect, such that you don't have a whole staff that their work is just collecting that data, or it's too expensive for you to collect the data. Measure what you can part-time and measure what is most relevant for your organization. So I'm going to pause there. I see Robin Amo.
Thank you, Shagan. Well, thank you also for, we had this conversation. You've been running this program, or running an impact program in Kelowna, and it's months. So we said, can you put that into 45 minutes? So, thank you so much for even trying to start us on this discussion and this thought process around impact. For those of you in the Kootenay region, if you want to dive into this more, please let me know. We do have an Impact Toolbox program that I can give you access to around impact measurement, and it'd be yourself going through that training program as well. So I'll put my email in the chat if you don't already know. I'd just like you to reach out to me and say, I'm interested in getting this, and I can look at our licenses we've got for it. There's obviously a cost to it, but those in the Kootenays, we do have ability for you to access that. But I also think, Shagan, we've talked about, do we run a longer program? Do we actually have a cohort around impact as well? And open to that. Again, if this is something that you want to dive into, we can also potentially look longer term at funding that we can find to run a cohort on this, because the whole reason that Innovate for Impact exists is we want to make change in our rural communities. We want to have more social enterprises. So the way in growing the ecosystem, again, these are all our impacts we want to make in our program. So we've got to keep thinking about ways we are measuring that and sharing that and supporting you on your journey. So thank you for your time. I won't keep you any longer because we are over the hour, but any of you want to reach out, please do. If you want to say, actually, we'd love another focus on this and we want to talk about this particular thing, let us know. Again, we are responsive to this. We've still got 4 more workshops in the series to go. We've got a couple more lined up, but if there's something particular you would like to know, then let us know. And thank you, Shagan, for sharing all your knowledge so beautifully.
Thank you so much.